Hey guys, well, welcome back to RockCrawlinJeeps. We have a new project. I've kind of hinted on it and talked about it in the past, but this is Purple ZJ. We're going to be doing a teardown and a full rebuild on this Jeep. I managed to find it after about 6 years of neglect, sitting in St. Louis. It was built by a buddy of mine, and we're going to give it the love it deserves. So we're going to go through today. We're going to do a full teardown. All right, so this Jeep has already got quite a few goodies on it, and here in just a second I'll kind of show them to you. We're fortunate enough to pick up a rig that already had a quality build on it, although it doesn't currently show it. But this rig's already got, if you don't look at the hacked exhaust, quite a good build list going on. So we've got a Ford 8.8 already swapped in. We've got Ironman 4x4 fab long arms, front and rear. It is a radius. It is their old style 4-link. So, you know, it's not the latest and greatest from them that you've seen on my green ZJ, but it is a very tried and true, great long arm system. That said, I did just order a whole bunch of goodies from Clayton Off-Road, and if you follow our Instagram, you've seen that. We'll get it more on that once it shows up. But we are triangulated 4-link in the back. We've got all the goodies. So for now, we're gonna tear it apart and get it all cleaned up. All right, so got the wheel off. We're gonna be taking all of the suspension out from underneath of this today. So we're gonna try and get it supported by the Unibody where I can, or even the pinch seams here on the rockers, just so we can hold it up and not have anything in the way. All right, and that's where she'll live while we tear her down. So, in the interest of safety, I know, rare thing, but I'm gonna tear down the back like this, and then we're gonna take the front tires off. But for now, I'm not gonna support the front, just so we can have it supported. It's way more safer with the tires on. All right, cool. So, I don't know how you guys like to do it, but I've kind of found over the years what works best for me is to kind of take a look at everything and make a plan. That plan for me is now, I've looked at it, the coil springs are unseated because I've got the axle drooped so far down. So we're just gonna start out and work our way in. So I'll pull the shocks, pull the coils, and then start pulling the drive shaft, the exhaust, and then lastly we'll pull the arms out of the way. I love impacts and stuff. Most of the time that's not a great choice for rusty old stuff. So most of a Jeep is a 15, a 17, and a 13. I'm going to imagine this bolt over here is probably a 15 or 17. It's actually bigger. But I understand not everybody's going to have something like this in your garage. I used to work as a dealership service tech for Chrysler and Jeep, so I've got a bit bigger of a collection. You can do this with any set of hand tools. A Jeep is not a complicated thing. So go to Harbor Freight, go to Lowe's, go to Sears, grab whatever you need. you can take it apart with a 200-piece tool set. At least for what I'm doing, and I find this to be rather helpful. Put the hardware back where it came from, then you don't lose it, or you don't wind up with a big stack of bolts that you have to figure out where they go again, because that's never fun. So again, just putting my hardware back. Less questions when I get done. But the other thing that I will always recommend not using is these shock boots. All they do is trap garbage in the top of this shock that you can see sitting in there. So don't run them. That way when you get done and you're out pressure washing your Jeep, number one, you're not trapping a bunch of salt and stuff in here to rust out this shaft. You'll be able to keep it a whole lot cleaner. So we'll be taking those off. So easiest way to explain this is a coil spring retainer. The bolt is a little bit bigger than anything I've got, so instead of trying to fight it and stripping and rounding the head off, you just tap it over, loosen it up. When you get done, you can tap it right back over. Why Jeeps? So we all know the Unibody, or at least those of us that have been building these things for a while. The Unibody is not the best platform. However, if you would compare it to say like a Toyota Tacoma, this thing's price blows that out of the water. You can't touch a Tacoma for anything under $5-6 grand really. These you can buy for $500. They're not a bad platform. You spend $500, reinforce the Unibody, you have a hell of a platform to take off-road. Great wheelbase. It's a TJ with leather and a V8 if you get that option. So they're quite a great platform. The aftermarket, although not as big as say a Wrangler market, is still really big. So you can get anything you need, and they're comfortable. I don't know how many of you guys love using a Sawzall. These are about the best I've found. Last week I cut through a whole bunch of unibody mounts and stuff like that with them. I've cut some pretty thick steel with these. They do really, really well. So not affiliated, not sponsored, not anything. I go to Lowe's and I buy them just the same as you, but these things are awesome. So we're gonna actually go to the junkyard. We're gonna get a stock exhaust from the header back, and we're gonna put this back to how it should be. All right. Another thing, some of you don't see it because, well, we don't really put it out there much, but I hate laying in dirt. Sounds prissy, sounds whatever you want to call it. There is no need to be laying in dirt. So look at all the crap falling off of this. It's also why I don't take anything I own in mud. And whatever you do grab, make sure you grab a 12 point. At least for what we're using with this 8.8 adapter. So we're gonna see if my little gun here can get this done. Nope. So we'll break them with a ratchet and then we'll switch over to the gun. So I want to point this out to you guys real quick. Something that just happened. If you notice, there's only a really, really small shiny spot on that. This is what happens when you lift a Jeep and you don't extend the drive shaft. This drive shaft only had about that much in. It's not nearly enough engagement. It needs to be like that. So there's about a 3-inch play from where it was and where it needed to be. So always make sure you have the right shaft for the job. So, as you can see, this high quality exhaust is really really on there. We'll get rid of the rest of that here shortly. This is just absolute garbage. All right, so that control arm has been in there for probably 6 or 7 years and never taken out. So it's rusted. The joints are kind of seized up and everything needs a little bit of love. So we're actually going to take these arms apart. We're going to get them powder coated, sandblasted, and cleaned up. And then I'll look into whether I can just clean them up, grease them up, or if I need to order up some rebuild kits for these Johnny joints. So it does look to be in pretty good shape. And then The other cool thing is we'll actually be cutting all of this off and switching over to a Clayton kit. The arms will stay. This stuff will go. Not today though. And then this is the other stuff we'll be fixing. Just a little rust and small stuff, but small stuff adds up. Quality work right there, guys. Quality work. Oh yeah, no, well it's up there right where that valley is, where the tank is.
Yeah.
There's a cracked line in there. I've got the parts to repair it on the parts shelf. But I figured I'd get the disassembly done, get the axle out of the way, then I'll drop the tank.
Yeah.
So, and yes, we haven't really covered it yet, but the night I bought this thing, the guy told me it had a massive fuel leak. But it does run. Able to get it in the trailer. Got it in the trailer, got it home. It's been sitting outside for about 5 months. So I was just happy it started again. Saved me some work. The night we bought this, I messaged the guy, and it had been for sale for about, I don't know, about 4 months, and nobody had really bid on it. So I made him an offer, and the offer was contingent upon him getting it running. So he had about 5 hours until I was in the St. Louis area to come grab it to get it running, and he managed to. So I brought it home. So most of this stuff, just in case anybody's curious, it's 21 millimeter. And a crescent wrench goes well. It's just the way it's working out. And that right there, if you do just leave the gun on something like that and let it keep rotating out, is super helpful for getting bolts under loadout. So just another little trick. Go back over to this. This is a very old crossmember design by a buddy of mine. We are going to be replacing this with a full underbody protection, skid plate, and all sorts of wonderful fun goodies. But for now, I'm just going to leave that holding some stuff up. Once the new stuff gets here, we'll cut this out. If you look really close, those are some of the most horrible welds I've ever seen. And unfortunately, I know the guy that did them. So I'm just loosening up this e-brake adjuster under here. This is probably the easiest way to get these e-brake cables out. We're just gonna pop them out up here and leave them with this because this axle is actually gonna go out to get sandblasted, and we'll probably just rattle can it. There's no need in powder coating an axle. However, we are going to be changing the gear ratios in this. We're gonna go from the 410 that's in it to a 456. So it'll be a little bit better for on-highway driving with those 35s that we've got.
And how do you change the gear ratio?
You pay somebody that knows what they're doing.
Perfect.
You can do it yourself. It's one of those things that unless you have a lot of experience doing it and you have the willingness to invest in the right tools, it's not something that's worth doing one time. To me and to a lot of other people, do I possess the skill set to do it? Sure. Do I want to do it? No. I'd rather take it to a reputable shop locally, let them gear the axles, and let them give me a warranty on their work. So, you know, it's a 50% cost savings to do it yourself. However, how many times are you willing to do it? You know, sure, 50% savings sounds wonderful, but 50% savings when you got to do it twice isn't a savings. What's your time worth and the rest of that? So that's why I, generally speaking, choose to just let a professional shop do those. We can get into it eventually. It's something I really would like to learn a bit more on, but in the interest of having a reliable rig done much quicker, I think we're just going to have a local shop do it for us.
And how much does that usually run?
Typically anywhere from, and this is entirely regionally dependent, $300 to $600 an axle. Locally for us, we've got a guy that's doing them for about $250 an axle. But I'm providing all of the parts. That is just his labor. So it's $500 for him to come in and change out those ratios for us. Fortunately, right now, like I said earlier, we kept the front wheels on, so I don't have to worry about this thing falling on me. You know, we have really solid jack standpoints, nothing's going anywhere. And this right here is just an e-brake cable. So unless you're using this, you're not disconnecting anything super important. It's basically just for parking. So we're gonna get this removed. Then the only other thing you gotta disconnect is right here is this brake line. This, once you do break this and open up this system, you need to be sure to get all the air out once you put everything back in. So that's, unless you have a pressure bleeder, a two-person job, one person up there pumping the brake pedal, somebody down here cracking the lines on either caliper to let that air out. So we will have to bleed the brakes down on this once we get done. This is the way I've normally taken them apart, but there's so much rust right here where these connectors are that it's proving to be a little difficult, and I don't want to break them. The other option is cut them in half and order replacements that are now rusty. So that is an option, but we're going to see if we can't get them off the other way first. So this is kind of the same design, it's just way easier to get to. So I think I shouldn't have any problems popping this off. And we're out. So nice and easy, just that quick. I'll give you a better view of it on the other side. That went a little faster than I thought it would. So we're almost ready to pull this rear axle out. Once we disconnect the e-brake on the other side, and disconnect that brake line, this axle can get yanked out of here, and then we can send it off to get cleaned up. You know, sometimes you can wire wheel and clean them up. This one has so much rust on it that I want a person to be able to get in there where I can't and really get it cleaned up and have it look real nice. So local powder coat companies are pretty cheap for that. Hit them up. They don't charge you very much. You can have a very professional result for a relatively low dollar investment. So on this, I'll kind of show you. Here. Ooh, the mechanic becomes the cameraman. So right here, there's a little connector, and we're gonna undo that connector and then slide this out through that hole. So just like that. And out she goes. Nice and easy. Undoing this rear brake line. Now, why a line wrench is so important is it grabs all the way around except for one little point, and it's a flat at that. So this will keep you from stripping out this little line right here, and that happens way more often than anybody's willing to admit. And now I'm going to move all my tools out of here so they don't get covered in brake fluid. I need to grab something. Trick. You can do it with a lot of things. I'm doing it with a glove and a zip tie. But what we're going to do is we're going to open up this line. And when we do, it's going to leak like crazy. So, there it comes. That's some nasty looking brake fluid too. So what we're gonna do is slip that glove over, get it down in there, and then take the zip tie so it can't come off. And what that's gonna do is keep that from leaking all over the place and dripping all the brake fluid onto my floor. So just little tips and tricks. And that will just kind of stick so it faces up for now. Then it won't be dripping everywhere either. Just gonna zip tie these e-brake cables so they're not hitting the ground and in the way the whole time. Now they're up, they're out of our way, we don't have to worry about them. You know, it's those little things that'll drive you nuts when you're building a Jeep. So take that extra 15, 20 seconds, do it the right way. All right, so other things we're going to address while we're down here that you can kind of see, and I'll actually show you, is we've got quite a leak on this transfer case down here. Odds are we're going to pull this thing out. We're going to swap it out for an MP231. That allows us the ability to switch over to a slip yoke eliminator instead of running a slip yoke, which you could see was barely engaged before. So we'll be pulling this out and exchanging it in favor of a better unit. And then we're going to replace all of this exhaust underneath here as well, because it's not the best up here. This has got some clearance issues and things like that. And then you can see we have quite a bit of rust on these long arms and stuff. So that's what we're gonna get into tearing down next. So this is free to come out. There is nothing holding her in place. So we'll pick up all the tools and yank an axle out of there. Other fun reason why I put this on jack stands, I can now take my jack, pick this thing up and wheel it out instead of having to slide it out and fight it the whole time. So then we got to get this arm out. The bolt's actually seized, so we got to fight that a little bit. Normally I would say don't do that, but we're not using that bolt again.
It's 2C stuff.
Yeah, that bolt's trash. So I'm just gonna try and get it out.